You ever pull into your own driveway after a 12-hour shift, sweaty, exhausted, just praying the toast didn't burn while your wife made dinner, and instead find every car you own plastered with neon orange tow notices, including your wife's handicap van? Yeah, that happened, and not by accident. Standing at the edge of the driveway like she was posing for a Victory magazine cover was Delilah Thornberry, our self-declared HOA Queen, with her designer clipboard and that smug Botox-tight smile. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You were warned." I stood there, my work boots still dusty, hands trembling, not from fear but from the sheer absurdity of what was happening. My mouth tasted like hot pennies in rage. That's when I remembered something Delilah didn't know, something she should have researched before declaring war. I own the biggest towing company in the entire county. That's right, I don't just know the rules, I write the playbook. And she just threatened the guy who controls every rollback rig from here to the state line. I looked her square in the face and smiled back. Because the thing about playing God in a neighborhood, you better be real sure there's not a bigger God living next door. And I bring tow trucks to a paperwork fight. Let me rewind for a second, because you need to understand just how deep this madness runs. My name's Marcus Bridgewater. I've been running Bridgewater Recovery Towing for over 2 decades. Started with a single rusted flatbed and a loan I had no business getting. Now, 8 trucks, 22 employees, and contracts with half the police departments in the county. I don't just move cars. I clean up crime scenes, repossess fraud vehicles, and know every loophole in every towing statute in the state. We moved into Willowbrook Estates because I thought we finally made it. Corner lot, circular driveway that fits 6 vehicles comfortably, plus space for Sarah's medical van and equipment. My wife, Sarah, she's got MS, uses a wheelchair. My twin girls, Amber and Jess, smart as whips. Honor students, sharing a beat-up Civic while we pour every spare cent into college funds and Sarah's treatment. But the second Delilah Thornberry moved in, ex-corporate compliance officer from California with a mission to clean up the neighborhood, everything changed. Her clipboard became a weapon. First it was my work trucks, then the basketball hoop, then the wheelchair ramp. She had the audacity to call that an unauthorized structure. And every time I compromised, she just moved the goalposts. It wasn't about property values, it was about control. This was her kingdom now. She thought a guy like me, blue-collar, calloused hands, married to a woman in a chair, would just roll over. What she didn't know? I don't bend, I tow. The real turning point came the morning I found Sarah quietly sobbing in the kitchen. She didn't even hear me come in. Her hand was on a stack of unopened medical bills, her tea gone cold. She looked up, smiled through tears, and said, "Maybe we should just pay the fines. I don't want the girls to suffer because of me." That was it. That moment. That crack in her voice broke something inside me. Because this wasn't just some HOA dispute anymore. This wasn't about a van or a Civic or a basketball hoop. This was psychological warfare. A power-hungry suburban tyrant had set her sights on my family, and my wife, who spent every ounce of her strength fighting MS with dignity, was being made to feel like she was the problem. That night, I pulled every document I could find: bylaws, parcel maps, county ordinances. I went full legal Sherlock Holmes. And that's when I found the first fatal mistake. Delilah had called an emergency HOA meeting to pass a new rule. Any vehicle parked over 48 hours was considered abandoned and subject to immediate towing. The problem? The law requires 48 hours written notice before such a meeting. And she sent the notice 2 days after the meeting happened. I checked the envelope. The postmark was my smoking gun. She broke her own rule to pass a rule that didn't exist. That's when I smiled. Because I knew. If she wanted to weaponize the HOA, I was about to show her what it felt like to be outgunned by a guy who owns the armory. You ever walk into a room knowing you're about to set the place on fire? With facts? That next HOA meeting, I strutted into the community center like it was my courtroom. Tucked under my arm were property surveys, timestamps, postmarks, county zoning laws, basically enough paperwork to wallpaper the whole building in her lies. The place smelled like burnt coffee and cold fear. 12 neighbors in folding chairs, Delilah at the front with her clipboard acting like this was some royal summit. I stood up, slammed my evidence on the table, and said loud enough for the maintenance guy in the hallway to hear, "This emergency towing rule is legally invalid." Dead silence. I laid out the postmark, the law, the timeline. Her smile? started cracking like bad grout. Sometimes the postal service is late, she tried. That's when I hit her with my favorite line of the night. Then I guess your power trip has an expiration date. The room shifted. I saw it in their eyes. Doubt, curiosity, fear, and Delilah? Oh, she hated losing control. She tried to regain footing by accusing me of petty parking violations. I just smiled and showed them photos of her BMW parked in a fire lane, time-stamped, illegal, $200 fine. Immediate tow under County Code 847B. Want me to get one of my trucks, I asked? She turned a shade of red Crayola doesn't make. But it didn't stop her. That week I got hit with 6 new violations, totaling $900. My crime? Parking cars in my own driveway. You could practically smell the desperation in the ink. That's when I knew she wasn't defending rules, she was weaponizing them, and she had no clue that I was just getting started. Delilah might have thought she was clever, but she forgot one critical thing. I've been in the towing game for 23 years. I don't just move cars, I move mountains of red tape for a living. So when she and her new lapdog, Bradford Kensington, a retired bank manager with more sweater vests than sense, started enforcing a new rule retroactively, oh, it was game on. This rule said any vehicle parked in a driveway for more than 72 hours could be towed, retroactively, meaning if you parked your car all weekend because you carpooled to work, that's now a crime. They were targeting working-class families, the ones trying to save gas, juggle kids, or just survive. My family got 6 violations in 1 week. 6. And the thing is, none of it was legal. See, HOAs can't override state property law. And the law here? Crystal clear. Homeowners have the right to park any legally registered vehicle on their own property. Full stop. Doesn't matter what a neighborhood covenant says. So I filed a complaint with the state's Consumer Protection Agency, citing illegal enforcement of property rights. And guess what? That triggered an automatic 30-day freeze on all HOA actions. That's right. Their little violation factory got shut down overnight. While Delilah scrambled for answers, I walked the entire neighborhood with a camera, documenting every real violation: boats on lawns, rusted trailers, overgrown hedges, junker cars without plates. I cataloged 47 violations. Every one of them belonged to white homeowners. You know how many violations they'd received? 0. Meanwhile, every black family, including mine, had a combined 23 notices in 6 months. That's not enforcement, that's discrimination, and I had the proof. So while Delilah patrolled like a wannabe dictator in heels, I was assembling a case that would turn her HOA throne into a legal guillotine. Now here's where. Things got downright sinister. Delilah realized paperwork wouldn't stop me. Legal threats wouldn't stop me. So she tried to cut me off at the knees by going after my business. One day my partner Rico calls me, laughing so hard he nearly drops his burrito. Yo, Marcus, your HOA Queen just called one of our biggest clients, said we're under investigation for fraud. I felt my stomach drop. That wasn't neighborhood drama anymore. That was defamation. She called 3 dealerships, the police department we tow for, and even an insurance firm, spreading lies that Bridgewater Recovery was a liability. Within a week, I lost 2 contracts worth over $3,000 a month. That's Sarah's medication, that's the girl's college savings, that's food on the damn table. I walked into the kitchen that night and found Sarah doing math no spouse should ever have to do, figuring out what treatments she could skip to save money. I watched her quietly weigh her health against our mortgage. That was the moment I crossed my own line. This wasn't about trucks. This wasn't about Delilah's fantasy of perfection. She had waged economic war on my family, and now it was personal. I built that business with my bare hands, brick by brick, mile by mile. She was trying to destroy it because I had the nerve to say no. I opened my laptop, cracked my knuckles, and pulled up every law about defamation, economic interference, and harassment. I started drafting formal complaints. State Bar, State Consumer Affairs, City Ethics Board, you name it. I was no longer playing defense, and I told my daughters, sitting at the kitchen table that night, nobody gets to scare us out of our home. Not without finding out exactly how strong this family is. And that's when I knew Delilah had no idea what kind of storm she'd just summoned. She should have backed down. Any rational person would have. But Delilah, she went and did the dumbest thing yet. She lawyered up. Not with just anyone. Oh no. She hired her cousin from California. A compliance attorney with a shiny LinkedIn profile and a law firm named that. T sounded like a Wall Street hedge fund. I get a letter in the mail with so much Latin and bold lettering it could have doubled as a medieval curse. It claimed my home business violated local zoning laws and ordered me to cease all operations within 30 days, or face prosecution. Thing is, it smelled more like desperation than danger. You see, I've dealt with real lawyers. This guy? His name didn't appear anywhere in the state bar directory. 5 minutes later, I confirmed it. He wasn't licensed in our state. Which means every letter, every threat, every signature was legally worthless. Not just void, criminal. Unauthorized practice of law is a felony. I filed a bar complaint so fast I damn near dislocated my wrist. And guess what? That triggers an automatic investigation and invalidates every letter he sent. Suddenly, Delilah's lawyer threat became as dangerous as a wet sponge. And while she was busy panicking over that, I hit the jackpot. Digging through their original HOA paperwork, I found it. A clerical error in their 2019 incorporation filing. Wrong county listed. That's not a typo, that's a legal time bomb. Without proper registration, the HOA wasn't legally valid. Every fine, every vote, every violation, illegal. These people were running a fake government, a cosplay council with no real power, and they'd been robbing us blind under the illusion of authority. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment that says, "No king in the cul-de-sac." Type it twice. Let the algorithm know that we're done bowing to petty tyrants in polos. Because the moment I found that document, that was the moment the whole game flipped. I wasn't just fighting back, I was about to abolish the HOA entirely. The night before the final HOA meeting, I sat on the back porch in the same worn-down chair I'd fixed a dozen times. Sarah was inside, asleep after a rough treatment day. The girls restudying for finals, headphones on, pencils flying, and I just stared out at the garden she built with her bare hands. Lavender, basil, that weird patch of mint that kept taking over everything. I closed my eyes, breathed in that mix of diesel and wildflowers, and whispered to myself, "No king in the cul-de-sac." Because tomorrow I wasn't going in to fight over parking spaces, I was going in to liberate a neighborhood. I walked into that meeting holding a file so thick it needed its own zip code. Inside, the invalid incorporation papers, the unlicensed lawyer's letter, the racial bias violations, the illegal meetings, and the predatory towing invoices. Oh, and the final cherry on top? My forensic dive into financial records revealed that Delilah's husband owned 40% of Apex Towing, the same company she'd been funneling every violation to. $180,000 in towing bills over 18 months for a 47-home neighborhood. That's $3,800 per house. She'd weaponized the HOA to turn family disputes into family profit. I laid it all out on the table, one document after another, like I was dealing cards at Judgment Day. Her face? Paler than printer paper. Bradford tried to interrupt, so I read aloud the ethics complaint I'd filed against him for conflict of interest. One by one, neighbors' jaws dropped. That room, once a stage for Delilah's little dictatorship, became a courtroom. And I was the prosecution, judge, and jury. I ended with this. You violated trust, law, and community. And if this HOA doesn't dissolve itself immediately, I'll file a class action lawsuit so loud it'll rattle windows in Sacramento. Silence. Then one by one, neighbors stood up, some with tears, others with slow claps. But they all knew it was over. And when the motion passed to dissolve the HOA, it wasn't just a vote. It was a liberation. The neighborhood took its power back. From a tyrant. From a system rigged against the people. From fear itself. It's been 6 months since that final meeting. The HOA is gone. Dissolved. Buried in the same bureaucratic grave it tried to drag the rest of us into. Delilah. Moved out within 30 days. For sale sign hit the lawn faster than her heels used to click down the sidewalk. Bradford, word is he's focusing on his health and taking time off. Which is suburban code for don't ask. As for me, I repainted the ramp Sarah uses. Bright blue. Like a flag. Like a statement. And every time I help her down it, I remember that fight wasn't just for us. It was for every family that's ever felt small in their own home. For every dad that pulled double shifts while some clipboard queen tried to slap fines on his dignity. For every mom who cried in the kitchen over bills that shouldn't exist. And for every kid who sat in their bedroom hearing whispered arguments about whether they had to move, just to feel safe. That's the power of standing up. That's the power of knowing your rights. That's the power of refusing to bow. Because when the HOA tried to tow my cars, they didn't realize I own the trucks. I own the asphalt beneath their rules. And when they messed with my family, they learned the hard way that you can't regulate a man who built his life from the ground up. Not with bylaws, not with fake meetings, not with corporate cousins and phony letters. In the end, I didn't just stop them. I exposed them. I ended them. And if you've ever felt that same fire, that same sense of injustice, then do me one favor. Drop a comment below that says, "No king in the cul-de-sac." Say it twice. Let every HOA tyrant out there know. The people are done kneeling. Now hit that subscribe button because the next story, oh, it's even wilder.